Hello, everybody. Welcome to 24 Hours of Pass, the summit preview for 2016. We're really excited you could join us today for Marco Russo's session, Create a Power BI Solution in One Day. This 24 Hours of Pass event consists of 24 consecutive live webinars delivered by expert speakers from the PASS community. The sessions will be recorded and posted online after the event. If you want to access any more of the on-demand sessions that are still going to happen today, visit www.24hoursofpass.com for links to all those sessions. My name is Phil Hummel. I'm a PASS member, Microsoft SQL Certified Master, and an EMC Certified Data Scientist. I have a few introductory slides that I'm going to go through about technical assistance, our sponsors, and PASS, and then I'll hand over the reins to Marco. It won't take any more than maybe 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to get through the intro material. Marco, could we have the next slide, please? Okay. So if you require technical assistance, please type your question into the question pane on the right-hand side of your screen, and someone will assist you. The question pane is also where you will ask any questions throughout the presentation about the content. Feel free to enter your questions at any time, and once we get to the Q&A portion, I'll go through and organize the questions, and we'll get Marco to answer them. Any questions that we can't get to in this session, we'll respond to you via email afterwards. You're able to zoom in on the presentation content by using the zoom button located at the top of the presentation window. There will be a short evaluation at the end of the session. Your feedback is really important to PASS, so please take a minute to complete it. It'll appear in your web browser. Next slide, Marco. I'd like to take a moment and thank our presenting sponsors, Microsoft, Idera, and Attunity. In addition, I'd also like to thank supporting sponsors for this event, SQL Sentry and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Microsoft combine their respective strengths to deliver innovative technologies that advance your business. HPE's integrated solutions, services, and support help amplify the speed and effectiveness of your business, grow your competitive edge, and deliver tangible business results. Please check out their handouts in the pane in your control panel for more information about our sponsors. The staging of 24-Hour Pass would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. They're the reason this event is available free of charge. Next slide, please. Make sure you explore everything that PASS has to offer for data professionals. You can join your local user groups. I belong to the users groups here in the Bay Area, and there's users groups all around the world. Special interest groups and free online resources through the Learning Center, and an opportunity to read up on the latest community news in the Connector newsline. All available through www.sqlpass.org. It's a great organization. If you're not a member already, you really seriously should consider it. Next slide, please. I'd like to bring everybody's attention to the upcoming PASS Summit taking place in Seattle from October 25th through the 28th. PASS Summit 2016 features over 200 sessions with world-class data experts. It's always hard to get money for conferences, but I think this is one that's really worth it. It's the perfect place to network with experts and peers, and you can meet the Microsoft engineering team behind SQL Server. Microsoft has a lot of employees who go and man booths and by subject area, and it's a great opportunity to find out not only what's happening now, but also in the future. You can save $200 on registration by using an exclusive discount code 24HOP200. But you need to do that before the end of Sunday, September 18th. To find out more, visit www.passsummit.com. And one more slide, please. I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Marco Russo. Marco is a business intelligence consultant and mentor. His main activities are related to relational and multidimensional design for data warehousing. He's spoken at international conferences such as Ignite, Pass Summit, SQL Rally, and SQL Bits, as well as being the author of several books. Next slide, please. And that's the end of our introductory material. Here is Marco with his session, Create a Power BI Solution in One Day. Take it away, Marco.
Thank you very, very much, Philip, and welcome everybody to this presentation. As you see from the title, this is a Create Power BI Solution in One Day preview, because of course in less than 1 hour we can just take a look at what we will do in this presentation in this day. I will try to show you from one side what you have in Power BI, but I will focus more on the specific takeaway of this day. Even for those of you that already started using Power BI, I mean, if you already know very well Power BI, you will not see anything new today probably. But if you started to use Power BI in the last maybe days or weeks or months, maybe that you didn't have time to discover all the features that you have, especially in terms of architecture and collaboration, because usually you start using Power BI alone, maybe you start to share one dashboard, but there are features that are not immediately visible in Power BI, and so this is more or less the goal of this day. So the structure of the Power BI pre-conference that I will have on I think Tuesday in the week of the conference is starting to create a first report with Excel. I mean, we will just start with Excel files. I will show you a quick demo in a moment, and most of the time I will spend on a demo. I just have a couple of slides to show the structure of what we will do. And then we will spend more time looking at all the available options to share the result of a report, but also how to collaborate in the creation of a report and in sharing the data and in sharing also the comments. We will see different type of data sources on premises, on the cloud, and through the gateway. And we will discuss about the possible options of data refresh. In this presentation, in this preview, I will not spend too much time on the more technical details that we will see more during the day, of course. And then we will see how to create the richer data models using Power BI Desktop. We will start using the service Power BI, so the web site of Power BI, and we will start using Power BI Desktop at a certain point during the day. So we will not start immediately with Power BI Desktop, because in this way we will focus more on the collaboration features that, as I said, are not immediately visible. And finally, we will discuss about the APIs and the custom visuals that enables you to extend the Power BI platform. So the goal of this preview, as I said, is just to understand what you can learn in one day. And we will focus in particular on a couple of topics like the integration with Office 365, the groups, and the ability to refresh with OneDrive. We will also talk about content packs in groups, which is another interesting scenario that we will not discuss too much deeply today, but we will have more time during the pre-conference. Now, before looking at the demo, and this is the last slide that I have, fundamentally this slide is just a recap of what is the architecture of Power BI. Power BI, I call Power BI not a product. Power BI to me is an ecosystem, because in reality you have different services, different products, different applications that you can use. The idea, the goal of Power BI is to enable user to create and share data in form of presentation of data, reports, analysis, discovery, and so on. So from the point of view of the the data sources. The data sources could be everywhere. You may have data sources in an Excel file. You may have data sources in external databases on-prem or in the cloud. You may connect also Power BI to many existing services that provide data not just in forms of table and columns, but in forms of services that provides a semantic model of your data. The same semantic model that you can create if you have Excel with Power Pivot, or if you use Power BI Desktop with the Power BI Desktop application. And the same semantic model that you can scale on a server if you use SQL Server analysis services. Regardless of where your data is and the level of the semantic layer that you have, Power BI enables you to create reports on top of this data model. So if you don't have a data model, you can create a data model first in Power BI, and then you can create a report and then a dashboard, and you can deploy this result on different devices. You can start showing the data in your desktop with Power BI Desktop. You can show the same data on any browser, and you can show the data on mobile devices in two ways, using the web browser experience or using a specific application available for Android, iOS, and Windows devices, which are native applications that improve the user experience of showing data and navigating into data, and providing also some offline capability so that you can review a dashboard even when you are offline. Of course, there are limitations. You cannot do everything. You have to download data in advance, but fundamentally, this is a feature that is already available today. So this is, as I said, the last slide that I have. We will do just one slide of recap. I will try to keep at least 10-15 minutes for questions and answers. And so my goal in the next 30 minutes or maybe something more is to show you what is the walkthrough of the day. Where we start, what we obtain, and showing you some of the results and commenting what we will learn and what we will see in this day. The initial point is a scenario where we have a user that has some data in Excel. Data about the sales, that we will use, our users want to use to create the budget for the new fiscal year. This data is not necessarily structured in a normalized way. As you see, if you have some knowledge about how to properly model a database, this table is more a report than a data source. But we will see how, starting from this not necessarily well-structured data, we will be able to create something that is easier to navigate and to show in a report. But the initial point is that, okay, if we have this Excel file on our desktop, what can we do? We fundamentally start using the Power BI service. Power BI is fundamentally a website where you, the first time that you connect, you provide just your email and you create an account if you don't have one. I suppose that many of the viewers of this preview, because you already know PASS, probably you have already seen or tried Power BI. And so this is the window that you have once you enter in the service. So imagine we already created our account and we have this presentation. We have different objects that we can see. We have dashboards, reports, data sets, and we will explain in detail what are the differences between these different type of objects in our environment, in our workspace. However, when you want to get data, you start from the Get Data button that moves you into this window where you can choose where you want to start. And of course, if we have an Excel file, we can simply upload an Excel file in Power BI. So the first thing that we will do, we will load the file, the Excel file from a local file. We will upload this file to the service, and at the end we will obtain something that is similar to what you see here. So fundamentally, in this example, you can see that the data that I had in a previous model is now loaded, sorry, this data, sales 2015. This data set is fundamentally the equivalent of the content of my Excel file that I can bring into my report, and I can use to show the data. Of course, I may want to increase the font. I'm using a relatively small screen here, so in order to make the data more readable, I can show this information. And you can see that I can already create a report in a tabular format, or I can do the same using one of the visualization that we have. So it's very quick to create this report. But what is interesting is that I can also use for example, the country, and ask for a visualization where I see a map. And this is something that I can do in a relatively quick way. And as you see, I immediately mapped the data that I had in Excel in a map, in a physical map that has been downloaded from the Bing service. So this is just a very first quick example. We have some data, we want to display some chart, we want to analyze data. And of course, you probably have already seen many of these demos with a lot of graphics, a lot of interaction. I will not spend too much time on that. I'm more interested into showing you what are this collaboration feature that I was discussing. So the goal of this user is to create a budget. So this was just the starting point. We want to take a look at the data in the past, and we want to create a budget, looking at the data, inserting data, and so on. And if you think about this, what is the main tool to create a budget? Well, probably Excel. So in reality, we want to introduce data. But the point is that when we introduce this data in Excel, then we want to show this data in a graphical way. Moreover, if we want to create a budget, maybe that we are in a team, we work with several people, and in fact, my Contoso user that I was using here already created some other report that shared with other user, and at the same time, other users shared with this user, Wendy, some report. As you see from this small icon here, this report has not been created by Wendy, which is my current user here, has been created by another user, David. And David shared this report with Wendy. So Wendy at this point can look at the report, can navigate into the report, but she cannot edit the report. As you see, the editing is not possible if the sharing made by David didn't provide this kind of right. This happens when you share a single report, a single private report, but there is another way. If you are in a group, in a team, in a company, probably you want to be able to not only view, but also to edit the content created by other teams, other members of your team. So Power BI has the notion of workspace. Initially, you have a single personal private workspace, and you can share some of this report that you create with other users. We have a specific feature to do that. So a report, not this one, but sorry, a dashboard like this one can be actually shared with other users. Okay, I will show this later. But if I move to another workspace, this is another section, another area that actually corresponds to what we know as Office 365 group. I mean, when you create a group workspace in Power BI, you have a correspondent Power BI group, a correspondent Office 365 group. Why this is important? Because if you have Office 365 in your company, this is a feature that you can leverage a lot. What are we seeing here? Okay, we are seeing another report created by David, and of course in the day we will see all the steps to create these reports. And this report has a data source that is an Excel file. What is interesting is that this Excel file is not on the local drive of David. This Excel file has been loaded from the OneDrive for Business area. So I switched to the OneDrive website, and here you can see that in OneDrive I have a group that has a name, Budget 2016, and both David, Wendy, and maybe other users have access to read and write in this group. What does it mean? This file, Sales 2015 and Budget 2016, is actually the data source for this report. In this report, we have a number of information. We have the budget, we have the sales. So we see in the same dashboard, we see information coming from this model. Now, what is interesting, since this model is an Excel file, if I click on this file, I can show the content of this file in a browser. So any user, even without a Windows machine, can open this file. It is just any browser that you can use. But not only that, if as you see, this Excel file contains the information about the budget. And what you can do at this point, you can edit the workbook in the browser if you want, and you can just modify the value of one of these numbers. For example, this number is small, I want to increase the number of this cell. At this point, I just click at the enter, and I already modified the content of the file on OneDrive. At this point, since Power BI loaded this data from an Excel file that is on OneDrive, Power BI is automatically notified that some data has been changed, and with a latency of a few minutes, it will update the data that we can see here. So the idea is that if you use OneDrive, you can share the data in a way that make it possible to multiple members of a team to modify the data, and at the same time the data is immediately available to Power BI that automatically refresh the data without having to schedule a refresh. In fact, you can see that in a data source you may have a schedule refresh, but in this case, or you can, for example, you can say I want to refresh this workbook every day or every 8 hours or something like that. But in reality, this is not necessary when you have a data set that starts from OneDrive, because fundamentally OneDrive automatically performs the updates. This is the default is every hour for OneDrive. So you cannot change this setting. This is automatic, made by OneDrive. And let's say that OneDrive guarantees the hour update, but my experience is that usually this happens more frequently than that. But Microsoft provides you this guarantee. So the idea at this point is that, okay, so we let's do a quick recap. We started from an Excel file. We can load this Excel file in Power BI. We can create a report in Power BI. We can use the same approach, but getting the data not from the local drive, but from OneDrive. So this is the option that I would use to load data from OneDrive. So this is a first step of the presentation that will take, I think, 2 to 3 hours during the day, maybe a couple of hours at least. Now, at this point, we reach the point where we are using just the data that were in Excel and that were has been entered manually. But one thing that you might want to do is, okay, look, in order to complete the budget, we want to understand what are the products more visited or more viewed on the website. So the company has a website, the company has data about the visits on the website, and imagine what most of the websites use services like Google Analytics to collect information statistics about the visits on the website. And Power BI has a number of services already integrated that you can use. And for example, if I connect to Google Analytics, which is one of the many that you have available, but as you see in this list, it's amazing. The list of the services that are already available, for example, QuickBooks is one of the many applications, but of course you have Dynamics, you have many things. I want to connect to Google Analytics. What does it mean? Google Analytics allows me to get not only a connection, but also a set of predefined reports that I will be able to import in my Power BI environment, connecting these reports to my own data. So of course, at this point, if I continue, I will be asked to provide the credential, the user credential, to access to the data of my Google Analytics storage, Google Analytics service. So this will require a while. So at this point, I can show you. Oh, we already have this. So fundamentally, at this point, if I move forward, I will be requested to provide my Google account that will provide access to the application. The user mail and password that you enter are not stored on Power BI. Power BI will just receive an authorization to access to the data on your behalf. What you obtain once you complete this process, we can take a look at an example of this. Going back to the personal workspace, I already prepared that, and this is the result that we have. We obtain something like this. So this is a set of predefined reports that we can visit and we can analyze, and based on the data that we see here, we may decide that certain colors of certain products have a better trend, and we want to increase the budget for the next year for these products, for example. The data that we used actually are not the data of Contoso. Contoso is a fictitious company. We used the data from DAX Formatter that I will show you later, which is a service we have that is actually a real service with the real visitors, and so these numbers are real. It is just that these numbers are not from a company called Contoso. Now, this is nice, but what if I want to create a single data model where I can navigate my data, my budget, my sales, and the number of visits to my website by country? So I would like to create a single report where I want to see information that mix data from the visitors of the website and the data. Actually, this report actually contains this information, and what is interesting is what I have to do in order to create this mix of reports. At this point, I have to introduce Power BI Desktop, because if I want to create a single data model where I'm able to create a single chart that mixes data about the visits and data about the sales without using two different visualization, two different reports, I have to create a single data model. And this is possible using Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is a free tool that you can download from the Power BI website. If you go here, you can click on this button and you can download your Power BI Desktop, which is a Windows application. It only works on a Windows machine and provides you this user interface. So, for example, I have this. This is a model that that I already prepared, where one of the tables comes from an external Excel file, or comes from OneDrive, for example. This table website is a table that contains data that has been extracted from Google Analytics. So when you click Get Data in Power BI Desktop, you can actually connect to a number of providers, and between these providers we also have Google Analytics. Once again, I would like to highlight that there are a huge number of providers available, and this list of providers is increasing every month. So once I connect it to Google Analytics, I will have the same request of credential that we have seen in Power BI, the service. And finally, I will be able to customize my query. In fact, the data that you see here have been defined using another feature in Power BI Desktop, which is the query feature. This is the equivalent feature of Power Query that you have in Excel 2013 and 2016, and also 2010. And the query that you see here are defined using this this environment, this visual environment, and in particular my website query has been generated starting by the connection made to the Google Analytics. We connected to a specific service. We have gathered this initial data set, making a selection of columns and tables, but then we shaped the result using filters, using grouping, and obtaining this visualization. That is exactly what I want to import in my data model. So as you see, the raw data provided by Google Analytics was not exactly what I wanted to include in my data model, but I shaped the table with the right columns, the right data types, the right relationships in order to obtain something that was possible to compare with my other information. So once I have this information, and as you see, we can also create relationships between tables. It's not the case of this data model, but it will be the case of other more complex data models. We can create our dashboard. And as you see, in this table here, you see 12 months. For each month, you see the value of sales in 2015, the value of the budget, but you can also include sorry, not here. In this other visualization, for example, here we can create another visualization. We can see by country the number of new users, the number of sessions, the number of users. This is certainly not the right visualization. Let me use just this text visualization. And as you see, I can obtain this information, and I can use this data to make my decision. As I said, we will see how to evolve this model, creating a link between the two tables through the country, so that when I will select one country, I will select both tables. I will select a filter that will be applied to all the entities. This will be just an evolution of this initial data model. But this is just an interesting point. Once I decide that this data model, these reports are interesting, I just have to publish the data model. So if I go here and I publish to Power BI, I upload my file, my Power BI desktop file that now I have locally to my desktop, to the cloud, to the service. In my account, I can decide where I want to publish, in my private workspace, in the budget group, or somewhere else. And once I do that, my report will become available here in this user interface. I will have this report. This is the report that I created initially in Power BI Desktop, and then I can choose to pin one or more of these visuals in the report into the dashboard. I don't have enough time now to explain in detail the differences, but fundamentally we have three types of objects. The data set represents the data model, so the tables, the relationships, and the data that you have. The report is a multi-page report containing one or more visuals, and the report enables you to interact with data. Let me see if I have a report that allows me to do a better interaction. So for example, if I select on some data here, you see that this selection automatically restricts the data that is showed in other visuals. These reports are intentionally very simple because during the day, the pre-con, we want to explain in detail what is happening, and we want to be confused by the presence of too many objects that would confuse you. But in a moment I will show you some more beautiful and more complete report, of course. So the idea is that if I created the data in this way, I created the report in this way, I can say, oh, I want to pin this visualization in, for example, a new dashboard or an existing dashboard. What is a dashboard? The dashboard is important because the dashboard is the container of tiles. We call a tile one of this visualization. And so, for example, I call this preview. So I pin this into this dashboard. But I can pin in a dashboard custom visuals coming from different reports. The visualization that you have here, so this is a first visualization. Let me pin another one just to show you what I can do next. So I pin also this one. At this point, what is the difference? This visualization does not have the same freedom that you have in the report, and in particular does not have the interaction that you have in the report. You can actually select the sides, but you are restricted in selecting certain sizes. You cannot select any sides of this, so there are a number of restrictions. There is a reason for that. The idea is that the tiles that you put in a dashboard are automatically arranged in a different way in case you display this dashboard on a device that has a smaller screen. So when you display a dashboard on a mobile phone, for example, you will see one tile at a time, and maybe that instead of looking at the tiles in this order, you will look at the tiles in this other order. It is also possible to customize the view to optimize the layout for the web and for the phone. So if I create a specific version for the phone, I will have a visualization that, as you see, is specifically designed for the phone, maybe with some different choices in terms of the layout. So when I do that, of course, I define a different visualization for the two different devices. If I go back to the web, at this point I know that this will be visualized, will be displayed only in larger screen, so I don't care too much about the automatic layout. It is also important that the dashboard object is the object that can be cached on a mobile device. So on a mobile device, the mobile device could get a cache of this. Another feature that you have in the dashboard is the fact that you can share this dashboard. So, for example, I could invite someone who is in my company or who is outside of my company, and I can provide a certain access to this dashboard. So this is another feature that we will see during the pre-con. Now, let me move to, I still have other two important topics that I want to describe. The first is what if my data is on premises? I don't have the data on the cloud, I don't have the data on a service, I have my data on my SQL server, or I have data on my analysis services. So if you install in your company a data gateway, the data gateway is the central point where you can export the data of your company to the cloud, controlling what you expose to the Power BI service, controlling the users that are enabled to do that, and so on. So at this point, instead of using the contoso tenant that I used so far, I will use my SQL BI tenant. And before showing you the gateway settings, this dashboard that you are seeing here is a real-time dashboard. This is another type of dashboard, and this dashboard fundamentally it has been built using data pushed into Power BI from a service. There are APIs available that allows a developer to push data into Power BI instead of having Power BI that pull data out from an existing data source. For example, DAX Formatter is a website that allows you to copy a DAX expression. DAX is the language of Power BI that allows you to create calculated columns, calculate tables, and measures, and you can format this string in a more readable way. Now, when this happens, this service updates the information here. And if you have seen, this number changed from 1091 to 1092 without having to do any refresh. So this is what we call a real-time dashboard. A real-time dashboard updates this number every 1-2 seconds. So the delay is very minimal, but there are specific requirements. I cannot use Power BI Desktop to design such a data model. I have to use other APIs, but the knowledge, the features, the language that I have to use is always the same of Power BI. So let's say that, okay, we need a development skill to do that, but just to provide data. the user experience of creating the dashboard, maintaining the dashboard, navigating into the dashboard and into the report is actually absolutely the same that you have in Power BI. Now, as I said, we can see also which data we have on the gateway. For example, in this moment, I'm delivering this webinar from a hotel in Paris. I'm visiting a customer this week here. I have a few servers in my office in Italy, and I have a gateway installed there. And so I don't know where you are looking at this webinar, but fundamentally what is happening is that at this moment I'm seeing that, okay, my gateway in Italy is alive and kicking, and the cloud service made by Microsoft are I don't know where. But fundamentally here I can manage who can administer these gateways. Now the gateway has a configuration so that I have a number of data sources that has been configured for the access. And so, for example, here you see that I have a certain server with a certain database with certain credentials because I provide access to a few users of Power BI. So these are the users of my tenant of Power BI who are enabled to access to this data model. So fundamentally, the administrator of the gateway has the power of decide which data sources are available to which user. And then, of course, the cloud managed by Microsoft is getting the data from here, feeding Power BI. What can I do at this point? When I click on Get Data, if I go in Databases, I can select SQL Server Analysis Services because the Contoso that you have seen is a SQL Server Analysis Services database that I have in my office. So at this moment, in a few seconds, you will see the databases available in through my gateway. And so I select Contoso. And once I select Contoso, I will select the model, which is the perspective that I want to use. And I click Connect. And in a few clicks, I'm creating a new data set in my Power BI workspace, in my Power BI personal workspace, and you can see here this new report. At this point, I can include here, for example, sales amount. I can include the product. Let me see, the currency store continent. Okay, let's use the continent. Why not? So we can see here the sales by continent, we can increase the font, and so on. So fundamentally, let's see where is the font here. Okay, anyway. Fundamentally, this is something that I'm doing in real time, because in this moment, every time I click and I drill down into the data, I add some other information, a new query, I click on my machine, the Power BI service is getting the click, is generating a DAX query. The DAX query is sent to the server I have in Italy. The server in Italy answer, Power BI get the answer, produce the result that it is rendered on my machine. And if you think about what is happening behind the cover, it's amazing, the speed of the service, because actually the latency that you might imagine existent, this connection that are not necessarily very, very quick, is not visible in this type of report. Then, of course, if you will create 100 visual in the same page, you will have to wait some time, but not minutes, certainly a few seconds before getting the refresh. But usually the performance are very good. So this is the feature that we have in the connection for the on-premises. And during the day we will spend some more time looking at how to set up the connection, and we will spend some more time describing a few details. The last feature that I want to highlight, that we will also see but shortly during the pre-con, but you can try today because it's very, very easy and also fun to do, is the possibility to extend the visualization. If you look at this button, import from file, the number of visualizations available in a report in Power BI is interesting, but in some way is limited. So Power BI, however, allows you to get a custom visual. What is a custom visual? A custom visual is another object that another object that can render data in a different visual with a different visualization. And okay, but where can I get this visual? For example, if Microsoft has a Power BI Visual Gallery, which is fundamentally a place where you can browse in a number of existing visuals that you can download and install. This custom visual, as you see, there are many different custom visuals of many types for different scope. And I have prepared here a very quick gallery of custom visuals that I can show. For example, this is a custom visual that has been developed by Daniele, which is part of SQL BI, which is my company. And this custom visual allows you to import any chart, any graphic in JPEG or in a vector format from a SVG file, for example. You can create areas here in a visual editor that is available on a specific website for free. And as you see, you can use this to display data, to use this as a slicer, or you can also slice data here. And for example, if I click here, I'm filtering data and I see data colored here. In this moment, I have a visualization that is using a darker color when the number is higher, a lighter color when the number is lower, and different colors depending on the product category. So you see in the tooltip all the details about the information or about the measure that you have, and there are many other different visualizations. For example, here you can see another example where we can use vector map of countries. And what is interesting is that if you look at the United States, this is not a map, a big map, because as you see, Alaska and Hawaii are here. And this doesn't make sense if you look at the geography, but if you look at the, a synthetic representation, we have more real estate to display the name. And even if we do not respect the real sides of each state, actually we can read the data that would not be readable in a map that represented the real sides of each state, for example. So this is just one of the examples. Then we have, for example, the spark line. We have many different type of spark lines that are line charts with a particular attention to the space used, because we want to display this line chart in a very condensed and small space. We also have the smart filter is another interesting object which allows you to do a selection by typing, for example, the first letter, and then with tab I selected audio. Take a look here. This is the list of subcategories of audio. If I remove audio, this disappears and I see all the subcategories. Then I write cell phones and I see only the cell phones. But this is also multiple selection, so I can continue writing other selections, and I'm doing a multiple selection of categories. And this is very important when you have a list of hundreds of members. Using the classical slicer, it is very hard to use, whereas this technique is much more user-friendly, I would say. Then we have, yes?
We're coming up to close to the end of the session.
Yes. Okay, sorry. I want to give time for a question. So okay, so these custom visuals, as I said, are available in the Microsoft Power BI Gallery. A few of these visuals, the ones that are marked as OK vids, are also available in this website, where you can download for each custom visual also a demo, the same demo that I was showing now. For example, here I go down, I see the sample report. This is a Power BI report, and for each of these visuals there is also a video that shows you a demo of how to use and all the features of the custom visual. So this is what we will show in our session, in our pre-con. And so let me go to the recap, and so we will see that Power BI is a natural evolution from Excel, especially in terms of collaboration. Excel is the main tool to enter data and to get the unstructured data that you want to use in your report. But you can extend and enhance the models and the reports using Power BI Desktop as a data modeling tool and the custom visual to enhance your presentation. Questions?
Great. So the first question is from Anton. If your data source is MS SQL Server in your organization, I'm assuming that means on-premise, can it be refreshed?
Yes. Absolutely, yes. When you install the data gateway, you can query your SQL Server data model saying the Power BI model that imports 2, 3, 4 tables will refresh the data every day, every week, or every 2 hours. And when you do that, since you use the data on-prem, but you have the data gateway, even if you published your workbook on the cloud service from Microsoft will connect to your gateway and will get the data.
Perfect. So Cynthia asks, do you have any thoughts about the row-level security introduced in the July release of Power BI versus the use of row-level security in SQL Server Analysis Services?
Yeah. Okay. Of course, we didn't have time to explain all the features of Power BI. Power BI has a row-level security feature. If you use the row-level security feature in Power BI, you define the security related to the users that you have in Power BI. When you connect to SQL Server, you're using the Windows user fundamentally. And at that point, if you define the row-level security in SQL Server, you need the user to be impersonated in the right way. Now, at this point, the discussion will be long because depending on the architecture that you have, if you reach your SQL Server with a Windows user, you are in the condition of using the row-level security in SQL Server. Otherwise, you have to use the row-level security in Power BI. For example, if you use analysis services, fundamentally you have the option of choosing between the two. If you use Power BI, probably you have some more restriction about that. But we have to dig more into the specific configuration that you might have.
Great. And Mary asks, when can we get a solution of Power BI without having to publish data in the cloud? And I asked her if she knows about Power BI Desktop.
Power BI Desktop is a local application that you can use on your machine. It works, it does everything, but fundamentally you cannot, the way you can share a report in your company is copying the Power BI Desktop file to your colleague, but you don't have a common repository where you have all this data. But if you have SQL Server 2016, today you can just save the file on reporting services, so at least you have a common repository, but the report is not rendered in reporting services. However, the feature of publishing the Power BI Desktop file in your local company on premises using reporting services will come soon by Microsoft. Microsoft didn't disclose a date, but it said that it is a very high priority. As a personal opinion, you should be careful considering that which features will be available, because, for example, today we already have a vendor, which is Pyramid Analytics, which has a solution that publishes Power BI Desktop on-prem, but there are a few limitations about the features that you can use doing this. I expect, maybe not the same feature, not the same limitation, but I expect some limitation in publishing Power BI on-prem too, because there are features that are hard to implement on-prem, or simply because Microsoft will not give priority to that. So before assuming that any feature will be available on-prem, I suggest you to wait the first preview that Microsoft will make available, I hope, very soon.
And just real quickly, we only have a minute or so left. Jorge wants to know about when you're using the gateway, with the Windows users, where does AD, where do we get the Active Directory authentication for that user, and can he use SSL with the gateway?
Okay, can you repeat the first part of the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so where is the Active Directory server is located when you want to authenticate a user through the data gateway to Power BI?
Okay. The users that you see in Power BI are users of Azure Active Directory. But when you install the data gateway in your server or on your PC, because there is also a personal data gateway that you can use, but I didn't have time to discuss about that. The user that you configure on your gateway to access to the data source has to be users in your Windows domain. So you probably have a controller, a domain controller locally. You can define in the gateway, you can define a mapping between the Windows user and the Active Directory user, especially for the security, for the low-level security. You can do this matching for analysis services. So this again, there are a number of. We have to enter into more detail. If you send me an email, probably I can guide you. There are a few videos made by Adam Saxton. You look a guy in a cube is a channel on YouTube where you can find many videos about how to configure security for Power BI.
Okay, so that's great, Marco. We're going to have to wrap up with that. There's still a few more questions in the chat box. We're going to get our past moderators, and you will answer the rest of those through email. Okay. So I appreciate everybody coming today. Please make sure you stay tuned for the next session, locking, blocking, versions, and concurrency. With concurrency for maximum performance with world-famous Kaylin Delaney. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you very, very much. Bye-bye.